According to Reuters, Russia accuses Ukraine of killing 24 people in a New Year drone strike. January 1, 2026. That's the headline that kicks off the new year, and it tells you everything about where this conflict is heading. If you rely on timely, in-depth military and defense reports to stay informed, we really do encourage you to subscribe to Defense Reports. I'm Alex, and with me is Aria for the latest Deep Dive by Defense Report. We do sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of global defense, military tech, and strategic developments. And today, we're covering the intense drone war that's defining the start of 2026.
Our mission today is to sort through all these sources' reports on battlefield kinetics, civilian coping strategies, strategic logistics, and really distill what these New Year strikes tell us about the war's trajectory.
Because the scale is just massive. On one hand, you have reports of Ukraine facing, nearly 200 Russian drones? And at the same time, massive Ukrainian strikes hitting deep inside Russia. And here's where it gets really interesting for you. It's the sheer contrast in the narratives. We're seeing claims of attacks on Putin's residence alongside these devastating, verifiable hits on Ukraine's energy grid. It's a war on multiple fronts. Okay, let's unpack this then. The first couple of days of January 2026. What were the high-impact strikes, and why are the stories we're hearing so polarized?
Well, you saw an immediate collision of narratives. On one side, Russia immediately claimed that a Ukrainian drone strike killed 24 people and injured 50 others.
And this was in occupied territory, right? A resort town in Kherson.
Exactly. So that narrative is squarely focused on painting Ukrainian actions as targeting civilians during, New Year celebrations.
And what was Ukraine reporting at the same time? What was the scale of the Russian campaign from their perspective?
President Zelensky's narrative was completely different. He stated Russia launched roughly 200 drones, mostly the Shahed types, aimed specifically at energy infrastructure. His words were that Russia was bringing war to the new year.
And this wasn't just harassment.
No, not at all. It was devastating. We saw Russian Shaheds hit energy infrastructure in Volyn, and that left over 100,000 people without power, right as winter is setting in.
So that's a strategic choice designed to break civilian will. But Ukraine wasn't just taking hits. There were major strikes going the other way.
Precisely. Ukraine's response was very targeted. It focused on Russia's defense industrial base, the DIB, and its energy supplies. We saw strikes against the Ryazan oil refinery.
A major hub.
A very major hub, yes. And the Kuzmichi 1 oil pumping station. But maybe the most strategic hit was on the Kremny EL microelectronics plant.
Okay, so why is a microelectronics plant so critical? What does that do?
Because that one facility produces essential components for Russia's most valuable weapons. You're talking about air defense systems, Iskander missiles, key parts for their electronic warfare suites.
So taking that offline, even temporarily, has a ripple effect.
A huge one. The report suggested it had to suspend operations. So by hitting the DIB, Ukraine is trying to degrade Russia's ability to even build more weapons, not just hit its fuel stockpiles.
So this collision of narratives, civilian casualties versus attacks on the capacity to wage war, it shows that 2026 is starting with a full-on information war.
It creates a fog of war right from day one. Russia uses body counts to generate outrage, while Ukraine's long-range campaign is hitting the very industrial foundation that funds and builds the entire Russian military.
So if we shift from that strategic 30,000-foot view, let's go down to the ground. Let's talk about Kherson. The reports from there are harrowing.
They are. Kherson is a really stark example of a city under continuous siege, but one that's conducted almost entirely by unmanned systems.
And Russian forces are adapting their tactics.
Highly adaptive. See, the defenders inside Kherson City have gotten much better. They're using anti-drone nets, mobile EW systems, even just small arms fire to shoot them down.
So the city center is becoming a harder target. So where does Russia shift its focus?
To the choke points, to the logistics. They're using surveillance drones and FPV strike drones to hit the city's outskirts and, crucially, the key supply lines.
Like the road to Mykolaiv.
Exactly. That road is a hot zone now. And the goal is chillingly clear. They want to isolate the city, choke its supply lines, and break resistance without having to launch a direct, costly ground assault.
It's a siege by remote control.
Essentially, yes.
Right.
They're trying to create a humanitarian crisis using only unmanned systems.
And this constant aerial threat has forced civilians to adopt some pretty extraordinary survival tactics. I saw the term human safari being used.
That phrase really captures the asymmetry of it. We're seeing these very specific low-tech coping strategies emerge. For example, locals told reporters they only travel when the weather is bad.
Fog, rain, snow.
Right, because those conditions make it extremely difficult for a drone operator watching a live feed to acquire and track a target.
Or what about vehicle travel? The reports of people speeding up to 120 kilometers an hour. That just sounds insane.
It's a tactic of pure desperation. Driving at around 75 miles per hour? The logic is just physics. It minimizes the time an FPV drone has to lock onto you. You become a much harder, faster target to hit.
And on the ground.
People hide under dense tree cover. They've even installed these concrete pods at bus stops for people to shelter in.
This all illustrates a real tactical innovation from Russia. This is basically battlefield air interdiction, but done with cheap, disposable drones and glide bombs.
And for you, the listener, what's key here is that these simple low-tech adaptations, the nets, the timing travel with the weather, the speeding cars, they are direct proof of how pervasive this aerial threat has become. It connects the local terror to the macro strategy.
Okay, so that brings us to the core of this long war, these tactics, this grinding siege that's only possible with a massive manufacturing effort behind it. So let's look at the numbers.
The production scale Russia is aiming for is enormous. It just confirms their commitment to a long, protracted conflict. The sources say Russia planned to produce 70,000 long-range drones in 2025.
70,000.
And of those, 30,000 would be the Shahed type. And that's not even the most shocking number. They also plan to manufacture up to 120,000 glide bombs.
120,000 glide bombs. That's a number that suggests they're just prioritizing saturation over precision.
It's about overwhelming defenses. And the technology is evolving too. This is a critical detail. Current glide bombs are already dangerous, but they're modifying them for extended ranges between 100 to 180 kilometers.
And the goal is even further, right?
The goal, reportedly, is to get them to ranges of up to 400 kilometers.
And if they achieve a 400-kilometer range, what does that mean for Ukraine's defense? That changes everything.
It fundamentally shifts them from tactical battlefield weapons to deep strategic strike weapons. It means Russia can threaten almost every major Ukrainian city, every logistical hub, every rear base, without ever having to risk a manned aircraft.
Which forces Ukraine to spread its already strained air defenses even thinner.
Exactly. It's designed to overwhelm. We saw it in November, with over 500 projectiles launched in these massive combined strikes.
But despite this huge push, Ukrainian counterstrikes are having a real, measurable economic impact.
They absolutely are. We've talked about the hits on the DIB, but the continuous strikes on refineries and pumping stations are creating a serious economic ripple effect inside Russia.
And what's the evidence for that? How do we know it's working?
You can measure it. There are acute gasoline shortages and price surges across Russia. It's gotten so bad that they're relying on imports to stabilize their own domestic market.
So Belarus is exporting gasoline to Russia.
Correct. Which tells you that despite Putin's efforts to fund this war machine, sustained targeted strikes are making their internal logistics brittle.
So this has to challenge Putin's core theory of victory, right? His bet is that Russia can simply outlast the West's will to support Ukraine.
It creates a major vulnerability. Russia is already struggling. Manpower casualties are sometimes higher than their recruitment rate. You combine that personnel issue with a DIB that's being hit and facing bottlenecks. It shows that external pressure plus internal strikes can challenge the foundation of their long war strategy.
So beyond the battlefield, beyond the production lines, the start of 2026 also brought some incredibly clear signals on the political front.
Yes, the actions on the ground are directly tied to Russia's strategic posture, which is unwavering.
The clearest signal of that being the new conscription decree.
Right. Putin signed a decree for continuous conscription through 2026, targeting 261,000 personnel. But the long-term goal is to grow the entire military to 1.5 million.
That's not just about replacing losses, that's a massive expansion.
It's about restructuring the entire military for years of conflict. And to meet those quotas, the sources say they're using systematic raids that target migrants who have Russian citizenship, forcing them into service.
So that military buildup is one pillar. The other is the information war, like the claim that Ukraine targeted Putin residents.
Yes, a classic high-stakes info op. The CIA came out and assessed that Ukraine was definitely not targeting a Putin residence. Ukraine, of course, called it a lie.
But it serves a purpose.
It serves to justify escalation and paint Russia as the victim to international audiences.
So if we connect all of this, the military buildup, the disinformation, how does Russia approach something like the U.S. proposed 28-point peace plan?
They reject it, explicitly. They reject any plan that asks them to compromise on what they call their maximalist demands. Russian officials are on record saying they must achieve a full battlefield victory.
And their demands are Not realistic.
They're non-starters. They include a NATO withdrawal from Eastern Europe and, crucially, Ukraine ceding all of the illegally annexed oblasts.
Including territory they don't even currently occupy.
Precisely. They're demanding the surrender of parts of Kherson and Zaporizhia that are still under Ukrainian control.
Sure.
So they see peace proposals as, mere suggestions for discussion, not a real basis for a treaty.
So the refusal to negotiate in good faith, combined with the goal of a 1.5 million strong military, it really suggests Russia is committed to one thing: Ukraine's full capitulation. So to bring this all together, the start of 2026 is really defined by two interlocking conflicts. First, you have a kinetic war of attrition where large-scale drone and glide bomb production is just critical.
And second, an information war where casualty claims and these hardline peace demands are just tools to try to compel the West and Ukraine towards submission.
Which means the most critical variable going forward is the ability of Ukraine and its allies to keep up these counterstrikes and sustain support to challenge Russia's long-term commitment.
And given what we've discussed, the detailed civilian coping strategies in Kherson, the speeding cars, the hiding under trees, it makes you wonder what other unexpected low-tech adaptations might be emerging on the front lines that military analysts are missing? And more importantly, how quickly can drone defense technology catch up to these constantly evolving threats?
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex Sonoria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.